You know, when you're making deals and working in the realms of the gods, it's really important to know the right questions to ask. Otherwise, it's kind of like making your way through a darkened alley with nothing but a Bic lighter to show you the way. It's American Gods, Season 1, Episode 2, The Secret of Spoons. Hey everyone, D here, and welcome to this week's review of American Gods. So yeah, lots and lots of spoilers coming your way. Starting now. Alright, so another great episode. We are trudging things along forward. We are getting Shadow Moon out of his whole old life and into his new life. This is sort of, last week's episode was sort of him saying goodbye and really stepping into the new world. And tonight's episode is him sort of continuing on, wrapping things up, putting it all on a bow, packing it up in a crate, and sending it off while he trudges forward in his new life with Mr. Wednesday. Which is why I am saying, moving forward, learning to ask the right questions is really something that I think Shadow is going to have to start to develop. He's making his first steps. Really, we get to see him again stepping away from his old life to, by the end of the episode, really starting to embrace the weirdness, even though he doesn't understand it. And that's why I'm talking about asking questions. Because the one scene with Peter Stormare at the end proved in the bit of checkers game is the gods are still all about deals. And this is, again, goes really back to classic Greek mythology. Deals are how the gods do things. You can do anything with a god, you can set up any sort of exchange, it just all comes down to the deal, and both sides have to agree to that. And so because of that, asking the right questions, framing these deals, seeing what it is that the other side really wants or was really offering, is going to be part of Shadow's exploration. And I say that because let's go back to Mr. Wednesday, who is always very straightforward, I think, when dealing with Shadow. He is always honest, but he's not always forthright. He doesn't always share information. And that comes really to a big head in the very beginning of the episode, where we have Shadow coming back to the hotel and pulling Wednesday out of his room and saying, "What is going on?" Explaining Technology Boy, and Wednesday's response of, "He doesn't have a clue." Shadow's response is perfect there. "Great, he doesn't have a clue. I don't have a clue. Give me a clue. Tell me what's going on." And Wednesday isn't totally, again, forthright. He is not volunteering information. But whenever Shadow asks him questions, he always gets an honest response out of him. Sometimes more than he's expecting. Wednesday is very, very honest with Shadow. Relationship issues, always not tactful, but is always warning too. The same thing comes up with, again, we're talking about deals. Wednesday always reiterates when something is coming forward. Think about it, look at it, don't rush into things. He talks about it last week when he was talking about joining up with him and making a deal. He talked to him today with the great line about losing his mind, the best back and forth. "I think I'm losing my mind." Well, when do you think you're going to be sure? God, that had me rolling. I had to pause it today and I was laughing so hard. But even right there, he's saying, you can be crazy or not crazy. You can go either way, but take a moment, think about it, make a proper choice. Those are the parts of the deal that Shadow really has to start to focus on, start to really take seriously, because otherwise it's going to be really hard to see how he's getting past the beginning of next week's episode, losing the checkers game to the dark god there. And of course, when I say dark god, I am referring to Peter Stormare's Chernobog, who is a Slavic deity, 12th century or so. Continuing again, the old world. We have Odin, of course, who is a Norse god. Now we have Chernobog, who is a Slavic god. His brother that he refers to is Belobog. They're kind of like, a yin and yang. We have Chernobog is the dark, scary god. Belobog is the happier, gift-giving god. I believe they'll probably both end up being played by Peter Stormare. Question, is it a dual deity? He's just the two personalities of him. Those are things we're going to find out forward. And then Zonia, who is the elder sister there, played beautifully by Cloris Leachman. Oh, man, I haven't seen her for a while on screen, and she is just such a treat. Really, the acting quality throughout the show, again, amazing. But Zonia is, again, another Slavic god. Came over here with Chernobog, as they talked about, with her three sisters. Her three sisters with her, they are guardians, watchers of the stars, and to make sure that mankind is not destroyed. Zonia herself is the morning star, which would also be Mercury, which could have been another possibility for Mr. Wednesday, as I talked last week about different interpretations of what Wednesday is depending on the language. But of course we're saying that is Odin from the Norse gods. We have Mercury here, Zonia, the morning star, and then we have the evening star, and so on, her two sisters. We only met the younger one, the other one of course hiding off in her in her room. But while those were the later gods that we meet, they weren't the first of the show, nor the only ones. We started things off with a very appropriate, last week we were talking about the whole coming to America thing, and we are continuing on here, quite literally, with a coming to America story, though this one in the darkened hulls of a slave ship. 1697, where a prayer to the Ghana trickster god of Anansi brings forth Orlando Jones. Oh, just chewing up the scenery, playing beautifully. I was thinking he took the Samuel L. Jackson approach to being a god. Just be mad, just be angry, just yell at everything, and did it beautifully. I don't want to say that he is being Samuel L. Jackson. He is being Orlando Jones, being awesome. Just the image that I had. But dealing with the slaves, I think, in quite a frightening and appropriate way for a god. While they are praying for release, while they are praying for assistance, he steps forward and just says, you have no idea the hell you and your people are about to walk into. The introduction of color right there, which continues along a little bit with Peter Stormare, with Chernobog, talking about him as dark and his brothers being light, also referring to Shadow Moon later as his only black friend. Here we kind of get the beginnings of those colors differential, where we have the white Dutchman taking the black Africans and now creating, we are white and you are black, and the whole, everything that kind of comes with it. His going off on the future and the future slavery, and then what's going to happen even after slavery, and the hatred of the people, and just stirring everyone up, the angry. He's going to help them, but not in the way that he wants, and that is why he is a trickster god, but instead just sets them free and sets them loose to destroy the Dutch, burn everything down. You're already dead. Go out fighting. And I gotta kind of appreciate that. I mean, that's what I thought when the guy said, why should we do that? And all I'm thinking is, well, you're already dead, and that's exactly what he said. You're already dead, jump in and do it. Of course, this still gets him to the new world. And that is that continuing theme that we are continuing here. We have coming to America, we have Anansi coming to America. We have later on Chernobog and the three sisters coming to America. Everything opened up last week with the story of coming to America. This is the conflict of the old world, the old gods, into the new world, the new gods, and the conflicts the two of them are going to be running into. And of course, like Wednesday says, win or die, it will be glorious. And then the last god that we meet today is the quite beautiful Gillian Anderson playing Media, or Lucio Ball, Lucy Ricardo as Media. And I loved how, again, this is still just putting Shadow off of his sense of balance. Constantly, wherever he goes, whatever he runs into, you now have these mysterious, magical, mind-warping forces coming at him. He's starting to deal with it a little bit more, I think, throughout this scene. But More than that, we are meeting our other god. We are meeting media. We had Technology Boy last week, the god of technology. Here we have the god of media. Television, movies, computers, digital, your phone, all of that media, everything that we consume. The screen is the altar, and we are the gods within that you pray to. Very nicely put, very beautifully done. And also illustrating the importance of shadow here, because media is also after shadow. So he seems to be somewhat of a tasty commodity. He is the flavor of the month of the moment. And I think it's going to be some time before we start to figure out why. Why is shadow so important? Wednesday went right to him. Technology Boy picked him up, trying to get information. Media is trying to get him to be on her side, to be her man. Through this, I think we're going to start figuring out whatever the history of shadow is. My first guess is that he is at least a half-god. Between the imagery that he is getting, between the dreams that he is having, those prophetic type dreams, I am thinking that there is something, special about him, if not something more that he's forgotten. He has talked about his one mom type thing and no father, so I think these are things that we're going to be discovering on a little bit more, and why shadow in particular is so wanted by both sides. Oh, and of course, I don't want to forget Belquis, Queen of Sheba, believed to be half human, half demon, part jinn. She is a goddess that feeds off of love, lust, and sexual energy, which seems all pretty appropriate with her actions last episode and this episode. Not really getting a whole lot more about her, except one, she has been feeding a lot, both sides. She doesn't discriminate. She's open to everything. Plus a little bit of looking into some ancient jewelry of hers. Looks like an outfit. It seemed to be her form that was rising up underneath the display glass. Felt museum-ish, but no one else there. Not sure if it's her particular personal collection. Just didn't get to see too much about that. Belquis, I think, is someone who's going to play an important role, because she is sort of a bridge between the old gods and the new gods. She is an older god, but she has a lot of, obviously, current strength and applications in this world. What? Sex? Lust? In this world? Ah, never. All right, just a couple of small things. One, on Shadow's t-shirt going as you went back home, that he obviously got from the American Hotel, having a little buffalo on the front right there. Just like the imagery. It's one thing to find the flirtatious texts between your wife and your best friend. It's another thing to find dick pics. You want to shut things down and just end that relationship? I think Wednesday was right there. Discovering that, finding that, you're only obligated to mourn over that for a certain period of time, and then you're done. Also, the bed was all ruffled there when he went in. Was it used just before on that night? Just saying. As usual, the imagery in this episode was spectacular. A great forced perspective shot between Shadow and Wednesday there at the house, where Shadow was looking all giant and Wednesday was looking all tiny. Plus, when they were in the supermarket just before media shows up, just the close shot on the ratchet of the cart and the wheels shaking and everything like this, I think very indicative of how Shadow's sort of feeling inside, how he's re-entering the world. Very unstable, very unsure of everything. Plus, of course, the beautiful dive through the starscape shot there was just amazing. As usual, the imagery on this and the overlay of images, the bleeding hammer in the midst of the conversation, how you can hear the song playing over that Chernobog is singing even though his lips aren't moving. I mean, all of that overlaying of imagery, just wonderful. Really gets the emotions involved into the scenes. Lastly, there has been no explanation so far given for Shadow's escape from his lynching last week. And from his explanation, from his discussion with Wednesday, Wednesday seemed a little bit surprised about the circumstances as well. And not happy about it. I like the fact that he says, even though I don't look it, don't think that I'm not mad or planning payback for that action. So I still have the question again is, How did he escape? Is it just part of the contract that he had with Wednesday and some mystical, magical sign of protection? You can't take my man outside of an agreed upon area. Or, like I had also mentioned earlier, is this a manifestation of Shadow's own godhood or half godhood or some sort of, extra powers of his own? We haven't been introduced to anyone else yet, so kind of have to hold by on it, but I think that might be a sign that there's more to Shadow, a real solid sign of more to Shadow than we suspect. Alright, so if this is all real, if TVs do talk, if Zonia can read the future, if hammers bleed, if there is a world underneath our world, and it looks like Shadow is about to make his next big step into the larger world of the gods. Whether he will survive that next step is going to be the next question, which we'll find out next week. I'm sure he probably does. It would be a really short series other than that. But that is going to wrap us up for this week. So, if you did enjoy this review, I would appreciate you hitting that like button. Thoughts, ideas, comments, throw those down in the section below. Where do you think the show is going? Who are we going to meet next? How long will it be until Shadow sort of wraps his head around things? And how exactly is he going to get out of getting his face smashed in by a hammer? Anyway, thoughts, throw those down in the section below. You can always catch me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Darren Jakes right there. But we have great shows coming up. We are just about to wrap up Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. We got 2 more episodes. They're getting 100% on the tomato meter reading for this season. It's been awesome. Hope you're going to catch that. But we will have Fear the Walking Dead and Game of Thrones coming up in the next 2 months. So, if you don't want to miss those, make sure you're a subscriber. You can do that by hitting my face right there. Press that button and you won't miss anything. And then I'll throw up our latest review for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. right there, and you can check that out. Alright, so that's going to be it for me. I am D, and I'm out of here. Catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.